This is a good example of the kind of messages I get sent day in and day out. Your body is worthless and decaying.
When you're on camera, you should turn around so everybody can see all of you.
Where's your husband? Don't you feel like you're being selfish? Your son needs you.
I just don't know if she can give enough blowjobs to win the race.
I could read out a million examples, but the bottom line is there's always either something sexual referenced, or it's the fact that I'm an idiot, I'm clueless, I have no understanding of policy, and that I feel entitled, stuff like that.
This is a message I got from Tom, and the subject is your image projection on TV. My personal, immediate, and initial impression when I first saw you is I thought your hair was disheveled and your eyeglasses were scary. Begin branding yourself in a better light. Have a stylist give you some ideas about a better, trendier, and modern hairstyle. So when I saw that, I was just furious because men that run for office, they have to go get a $20 haircut and a suit and looking like what we expect women politicians to look.
It's tens of thousands of pieces of anti-Semitic hate mail and death threats.
The biggest thing that really
And it didn't really hit me until I woke up one morning to thousands, tens of thousands of pieces of anti-Semitic hate mail and death threats.
The biggest thing that really hit home that made me decide to drop out of the race was when a friend of mine called from Germany. He worked for the German parliament and they monitor message boards that are basically Nazi and white supremacist. And he said that because my announcement had been on German national television, there were a lot of threats against my life.
I think the reason women in politics get
those of us who
I had, in particular, one male delegate who I felt like really wanted to have a more personal relationship than I was comfortable with. And that ended up being a pretty significant problem in my campaign that I had to deal with.
I didn't see any of the sexist remarks or comments as out of the ordinary when running for office, which in and of itself is an issue. And it didn't really hit me until I woke up one morning.
On a hot August night more than 63 years ago, Emmett Till was lynched here in the Mississippi Delta. His case was so horrific that it became an enduring symbol for racial hostility and injustice. In 1955, Emmett, a 14-year-old black boy from Chicago, was kidnapped, brutally beaten, and lynched in Mississippi after he was accused of whistling at a white woman at a grocery store. His body was thrown into a river and found days later.
The body was so badly damaged that we couldn't hardly just tell who he was, but he happened to have on a ring with his initials.
The men charged in Emmett's killing, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, were acquitted by an all-white, all-male jury. And though they later confessed, no one served any time. His mother, Mamie Till Mobley, was thrust into the media spotlight and spoke out on national television.
Well, the whole trial was just a farce, but the verdict was the one that I had expected to be given.
She held an open casket funeral, and in allowing his tortured body to be photographed, brought public attention to the case, profoundly shaping the civil rights movement.
For him to have died a hero would mean more to me than for him just to have died. And I know that his life can't be returned, but I hope that his death will certainly start a movement.
Here in Mississippi, the name Emmett Till has been carried by black families generation to generation, often as a cautionary tale. But only in the last decade or so have officials formally recognized what happened to the teenager in the summer of 1955. I came to Mississippi to learn how these communities are grappling with the legacy.
These cyber actors are using social media platforms to spread disinformation
and set Americans against each other,
targeting both sides of a country's most divisive issues.
You're watching a recent Senate Intelligence Committee hearing about how foreign internet trolls are using social media to influence American politics. In the lead-up to the 2016 presidential election, Russian trolls used disinformation campaigns to sow discord. Experts are now seeing similar activity heading into the 2018 midterms.
The trolls are trying to improve their tactics. They're trying to get better at hiding their traces. So it's going to be a game of cat and mouse.
Ben Nimmo is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab. He works to identify and analyze online disinformation.
The way these accounts work has always been a combination of infiltration and radicalization.
He walked us through some of the imagery and strategies used by notorious online trolls from Russia and perhaps elsewhere. First, they pick a hot-button issue.
There are certain very high-profile problems that American society has, which are well known abroad, and it tend to be those ones which are targeted. So the original Troll Factory accounts were very heavily engaged in the debate on gun control and the Second Amendment, on women's rights and abortion rights. They were heavily engaged on Black Lives Matter.
A slew of inauthentic accounts that Facebook recently deleted took the same approach, updated to fit the latest top news. They use identity politics and emotion to appeal to followers. Next step, tap into a community.
So you start off by making positive comments about the target group. Let's say you want to masquerade as a Black Lives Matter supporter. You start by making lots of positive comments about the African American community. You talk about how beautiful the girls are. You talk about their glorious cultural history, and you try and engage with real activists who are busy on this subject.
Now it's time to ramp it up.
Once you've established your credentials, you start slipping more and more toxic content into the mix. So rather than saying positive things about your community, you start saying negative things about other communities. The war against colonialism is a theme that comes up on this page time and again. It's a hint at violence.
And last, they try to move from the online world into real life.
And then maybe you slip into the mix a suggestion, let's have a protest. Let's get real people out on the streets. And then because you're operating probably from some time zones away, you need to think, well, how do we get this to happen? And you start trying to reach out to genuine local organizations. Maybe you say, well, we can't turn up on that day because we've got something else going on. Why don't you organize this for us?
In 2016, Russian trolls organized political events for and against both presidential candidates. At an Islamic center in Houston, they organized a protest and the corresponding counter-protest. So why go to such lengths? These bad actors are trying to polarize the American public by exploiting existing tensions in our society. The goal? Make Americans see each other as enemies, especially during high-stakes events.
Traveling by yourself is a really good way to get to know yourself. And to get to know yourself in strange environments. I think a really good way to understand the world and understand how you interact with it. I'm Jada Yuan. I'm the 52 Places Traveler for the New York Times, and you were hitting me about 1/3 of the way into the trip. Spent the last 4 months going up and down the Americas. Reykjavik takes me to Europe. Solo traveling is tougher than I thought, and it was really hard to balance traveling by myself and doing work at the same time, and not having like anyone I knew around me.
Congratulations. Thank you so Congratulations, much. I tell you. Yes, indeed.
Everyone's saying it's a surprise victory.
I can't let you go. She's looking at herself on television right now. How are you feeling? Can you put it into words? Nope.
I'm good. It's a whirlwind. It's crazy. When we vote, this is what happens. This is the change that's possible.